I'm Leah James, and this is the Traveling Table Dinner Series. Okay, so thank you all for sticking around and not just like peacing out on our break. I appreciate that we did not scare you away. And I really hope that the next questions just continue to help you all get to know each other. I feel like there may be still some things that you all don't know about each other that I'm excited for you all to know about each other. So let's kick it off with Lanisha's question, if you're open to it.
Yeah. How is your heart? I have to answer this question. My heart is different, damaged, and just different, I think. You know, we were talking about mortality and being time travelers, you said earlier. Such a beautiful metaphor, because what are we doing here? And how is it marked? And when is the exit? And we don't know the answer to any of those questions. And we were talking at the beginning of the conversation about the pandemic. And March 2020, we barely made it back. My family and I was pregnant with my son, my youngest son, and then had a 2-year-old, and my husband. We went to Europe, and we literally barely made it back. We had planned this trip, and we're monitoring, came back, and everything shut down, right? And so I was like, all right, cool, this is our life now. And I think for a whole year and a good 8-9 months, that was how our life was, because I had the baby, and then I was just in that. I didn't have childcare. We moved to 2021, and I get this huge contract, and I was doing a lot of work. I needed to find childcare. I found an in-home daycare locally, so I felt safe because it was just her 2 kids, my 2 kids. It's like perfect, and then we kept it like locked, and it was beautiful. And then she, towards the end of 2021, wanted to open it up and was like, oh, there's this neighbor kid and he wants to come part-time. I was super against it, and then talked to the parents and was like, I don't want to be that person. And we all got COVID in January 2022, and I had just gotten my booster. And then I was the sickest in the family, and then we all had it. I was really sick. I couldn't move. I just was in the bed for 2 weeks. Lost sense of taste and smell, was miserable. Life's not worth it. I love food. I was like, this ain't, I gotta go to sleep. And I actually just slept. And I don't remember much. And so my husband's birthday is in January. So it was restaurant week. And we got our sense of taste and smell back, and I wasn't testing positive. We all weren't. So we went out. And this one day in particular, it was like the best day of the year so far. January 29th, 2022, we were like, it was the best. And then I came home after having this brunch and sat down on the couch, and then I woke up in the ICU. And I didn't wake up in the ICU the next day. I was like, had a cardiac arrest. My husband had to do CPR. There was all this stuff that went down related to that. I'm in the hospital. I was reading about those people who had this kind of response to COVID. Most of them, I think, early days of COVID, they didn't have the vaccine. And I was just like, wow, how am I in the hospital? But I started learning about my experience and being in there. And one of the things that happened was I had a cardiac arrest, being revived. We don't know what the cause, the genesis is, but essentially I have a dilated cardiomyopathy, which is like a heart condition. I have heart failure. I'm on all these medications I was never on before. And so the question of how is your heart is just it's kind of messed up right now, but I have a pacemaker. I'm able to talk and walk and laugh and have a lot of life, and I have small children, so I kind of need to be there with them. But it's kind of interesting because I think I'm thinking of heart in a very like physical way, and like how it's really like the organ, the primary organ of our body. It's different from the brain, and it actually sends blood through our whole body, and it's an organ we don't really think about as much as your brain. I mean, if you're working and intellectual, you constantly think about your mind, but really your heart is like it's everything. So I think about it, this question, in that way, but then I think about it also with the question that you had earlier about how do you connect with people. And I always joke with my friends, like I was like, look, I died and I came back. I'm pretty lucky, and I'm like in the top percent, and I never thought I'd be in that. I'm like, can I be in the top percent for money? Like, why I gotta be in the top percent for like a crazy heart condition of somebody in my age group, and also with all the COVID stuff? Like, that's nuts. And I just think about when I realized I was in there, and I thought, oh, what's the purpose? Why am I here? I don't even know the answer to that, actually. The question that you had and what you're struggling with, I don't know. When I woke up and they explained to me where I was, I thought, where are my children? And I couldn't imagine that they weren't nearby or close there with me. And it was unfathomable, because the only time I had been in the hospital before was giving birth. It was just really weird being in there and then not seeing them or knowing where they were. And I was immediately thinking I would just get out and go get them. And then I was restrained, and they said, you can't. So I think my concern was less about my life and more about the absence of my presence in their life. It's interesting because I don't know. I don't know if I thought about who I was, my identity, who I am in the world, in relationship to them like that before this happened. Because I always thought, oh, I have a baby, and it's a thing that I have. Actually, that's how I thought of it, them. Not a thing, but a person. But they're my family, and they're with me. Mm-hmm. But I think during this experience, I started thinking about, like, if I'm not there, then what is their life going to be? How will they know who I am? Who am I for them if I'm not there? Because it's a role specific thing. You have to be telling them, like you said, about, it's okay to cry. And your daughter asking you have to, if not telling her that, where's she hearing that from? And so I just think about that in relationship to them, more like my presence here has to be connected with them. And that's part of me. And it's part of who I am. But I have a sense now more of like, I'm not wasting time. I'm letting people whose energy don't mesh with mine, they gotta go. We don't have time to waste. And actually, there is no time. This could be our last moment. So what? What are we doing? Why are we here? How are we gonna, what are we gonna take with us? And to me, that's like the heart part of it. Like, I have a gift to remind me that I need to be thinking about life like that. But that's the long and short of it.
I think those stories are so critical for us to remember what we're doing, because I think it's so easy to fall into these patterns of just get up and go and do your routine every day. Like, I've had a couple of those questions recently as well. I lost a dear friend a year and a half ago. And we're in our mid 30s. And I think about that and I'm like, oh, he wasn't ready or aware or any of that, so you sit on your couch or you work on your computer, and what if that was your last, right? What if that was the last moment and that was how you spent it? Or what if you stopped talking to someone and you wish you had come back to that relationship and talked to them? Or, what if you didn't come out of that hospital room. So I think those stories are really important for people to kind of get jolted back into reality and not lose sight of what they're actually doing every day, or how they're spending their time, or how they're connecting with people, why they're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, please don't ever not share your story if you're comfortable sharing your story.
It's very hard. I mean, you have to be vulnerable. Brene Brown's awesome, but not everybody want to be vulnerable.
Fair. That's fair.
It's not safe all the time.
No.
I think it's actually it's like the most beautiful, powerful place you could be, open and sharing who you are and what you're about, and something that's so like sensitive. And also, I don't have any answers, but it's hard to be vulnerable, and it's really hard because when you were talking about mortality and the way that you were talking about it was like, people, you don't have the time to waste on the energy that is draining you from people that maybe you've known them your whole life, and you gotta put them on a timeout. I was like, man, that's such a game changer. Because if you can reserve it for these kind of connections, for this kind of experience, then you just keep going. And even if it's the last moment, it's the best. And that's what I wanted. The last moment to be the best, whatever it is.
So who do you want to hear from on your question?
I was wondering what you would say to that, actually.
You want to repeat the question?
How is your heart?
How is your heart? Okay. I mean, I think right now my heart is really full and like full of gratitude. After I did the first film dinner, I realized like this is what I'm supposed to be doing. Like my everything is about like connecting with people and learning them and understanding like what makes you all tick and helping to facilitate those relationships. There's like nothing that brings me more joy than seeing people connect and like carry on those relationships over time. And so I would say like right now, I feel really grateful that I actually get this opportunity. And like before I started the series, the reason why I started it was because I met this man in a light shop in Barcelona. And we had literally no great way of communicating. We did not speak the same language. He spoke his native language. He spoke Catalan. He spoke Spanish. And he spoke a little bit of English. And I spoke English and like really broken Spanish. And when we connected, we had every reason to like leave that conversation because it was so uncomfortable, like trying to figure out how to communicate with each other. And the more I stayed in it, the more I realized we had in common. Like he cared about access to education for all. He cared about women being more in leadership roles. And he had 3 daughters who were practicing equal opportunity law. And so like in this conversation, like my mind is being blown by this man. And I just kept thinking, wow, I'm like so grateful that I get to meet people outside of my world, my individual world. And I wish more people got to do that. And I think during the pandemic, being isolated, getting to connect with people in different ways, right? Like connecting with people around the world that you might not have otherwise, but also not realizing the greater impact of that isolation on my heart. I feel like I lost a big part of who I was. And I think this has been also reviving me at the same time. Like when I set out on the road to do it, like I needed to be back with people and like connecting with people. And so like to get to do this and share it with everyone, that is my healing. So that was a really long way to say like, my heart's doing okay. You asked me 6 months ago, wasn't doing okay, probably at all, but it's doing good now.
So I'm just exploring those different aspects of like, who we are and who I am and what I'm about, and how then do I document that for people to tell someone, to communicate with them across the time traveling. I'll never be able to do it. Maybe I will as a spirit form, but that's a different conversation. But like, memorialize it somehow with technology or whatever, and then they can know from my perspective. Like that's such a cool idea to me. So anyway,
But I would say that, I mean, we all are traveling through time right now, right? That we all are time travelers in a way. And so it's not even, just technology that enables that. It's the way the world spins, that we, one thing that I'm hearing in what you're saying and reflecting on, thinking about is each of us will have some moment in our life where we stop thinking as much about our own initial velocity and we start thinking about what the sort of secondary impacts are of that, and thinking more about less how do we get to a certain spot and how do we help others get to a place. And sometimes that's pushed by a personal experience that is dramatic and sort of infused with all of that. I don't imagine that always is that. Sometimes probably more gradual for some, but I think there's that pivot point where you stop thinking as much about your own trajectory as an individual, divorced from the impact on the others that are connected to you.
Do you think that's why, because we're all drawn to education, and part of me is like, is this a unique perspective sometimes as educators? Because it's that idea of like, I can drop this one stone, it can echo out, and it doesn't matter, maybe I work with 500 kids, maybe not all 500 have this like legacy experience, but if I can get one or two, that like, it's not just that person, it's down the line, it's everyone they're connected to. And I don't know, maybe that's just how educators think sometimes. The impact on a single person isn't just a single person, I guess is where I'm going with that. It's like you're impacting generations. Like I work with college students, and for some students, that's like, I'm not just changing their life. It's like that could change the trajectory of your entire grandchildren, your great grandchildren. And then, yeah.
When I'm putting my daughter to bed, the last thing we do our 4-hour bedtime routine, as anyone does. But the last thing that I say to her, I tell her, your body comes from the earth, your spirit comes from the moon, and your heart comes from the sun. You are the universe, and you are me and my mom and your grandmother and your great grandmother and your sister and your daughters and their daughters and their daughters, and you're much bigger than you know. And she's 2, and I just sort of assumed that it was like going over her head, and it was just my voice that soothes her. And last night I forgot to do it, and as I was like quietly creeping out of her room, she goes, "Mommy, dime que soy de la luna," because I say it in Spanish when I'm saying it to her. So she said, "Mom, tell me I'm from the moon." Oh. So I think I think Teresa and I were both struggling not to become a puddle of tears while you were talking. 10 years ago, if you'd asked me how my heart was, it was not good. Sorry. And I think I'm really surprised I am where I am now. And I didn't even want to be here for a long time. And I thought about that recently while I was driving, and for a moment let myself think, what would have happened if I wasn't here? And to not have created my kids, who are these like tiny little people who are so wonderful, or if I was to go somewhere else now, and for them not to have me in their life. And that was like the thought that maybe 10 years ago felt enticing to me, felt like the most terrifying thing I could think of now. And traveling through time and having your perspective change so much. And Damien, you were talking about just sort of being at peace where you are now, and almost as like a meditation to like feel things that come in, and thoughts and emotions and interactions, and acknowledge them for what they are, and let them go and just to be in this moment and know that it's not going to last forever. That's like inherently, that's the only thing we can trust, is that it's not going to last forever, but soaking it up as much as we can right now, because that's the other thing that's the only, the only two things that are true is that we are here right now and that it is not going to last forever.
I think that's a really like powerful, profound way of stating it. And it's so powerful that you were teaching your little one the value of that, because I do think that that's incredibly powerful when you go through life knowing that it is not guaranteed, and that you know that like you have a moment in time, and it also allows you to accept things as they happen too. It allows you to like process life at the same time. I really appreciate you sharing that with us, and helping us maybe see even like our own like interaction with life a little bit differently too, or how we interact with life with other people a little bit differently, and recognizing that it's incredibly precious. Thank you.